Welcome to The Explainer. I'm your host, and today we're doing something, well, a little unconventional. We are putting on our hats as medieval military historians to conduct a high-stakes security audit of 12th century Jerusalem. But we aren't just looking at dusty old blueprints here. No, we are going to run a temporal stress test. Picture this, we are dropping a modern 50-man Delta Force strike team right outside the city walls, just before dawn in the year 1177. Their mission? Infiltrate what was universally considered an impregnable fortress, capture the young leper King Baldwin IV alive, and force the surrender of the entire city. It's an incredible scenario, and we're going to analyze exactly how modern asymmetric warfare completely dismantles medieval defensive doctrines.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our structural roadmap. We'll start with the defensive stress test, then move to exploiting the outer city gates, bypassing the inner walls, neutralizing the alarm systems, breaching the inner sanctum, and finally, we'll unpack a rather fatal strategic miscalculation.
Section 1, the defensive stress test. So Phase 1 of our analysis evaluates Jerusalem at its absolute peak. It's dawn, 1177. The gates are shut tight, guards are actively patrolling the watchtowers, and inside you've got this bustling network of pilgrims, knights, and the king's men just starting their day. To the medieval mind, this city is a fortress of unparalleled security, period. But then we introduce a sheer mathematical improbability. 50. Just 50 modern Delta Force operators are tasked with breaching this massive, highly populated stronghold to capture the king. By the numbers alone, it sounds completely absurd, right? But you have to remember, a modern Tier 1 element doesn't rely on numbers. They rely on exploiting systemic vulnerabilities.
To actually pull this off, the Delta team employs a clinical, 5-part operational plan. It starts with reconnaissance and confirmation to locate the king, followed by an alarm disruption team specifically tasked with severing communications. Then, the main assault element positions right near the target, while a perimeter security team locks down the narrow streets and return routes. Finally, an escape team preps the extraction. This highly compartmentalized structure perfectly sets the stage to systematically dismantle those rigid, centralized defensive doctrines of 177 Jerusalem.
Section 2, exploiting outer city gates. The very first major vulnerability we identified is the initial breach. Look, Delta knows they can't just walk up to the gates looking like 50 modern soldiers. Even their posture would trigger an immediate alarm. Instead, they exploit what we call the pilgrim caravan loophole. Back in the 12th century, Jerusalem thrived on this constant, massive influx of pilgrims, merchants, and supply carriers. So Delta simply disguises themselves as a tired caravan, burying their modern weaponry deep within their cargo. They aren't fighting their way in, they're using social engineering. An Arabic-speaking Delta operator steps right up to the guards, gives brief, plausible answers, and totally exploits the city's heavy reliance on daily routine to just walk right through the front door.
Now, once inside, 2 city guards actually do become suspicious of this new caravan and start tailing the team, but Delta spots them immediately. Knowing that letting these guards report back would compromise the whole shebang, the operators deliberately funnel the guards into a narrow, empty passage and silently neutralize them. This exposes a massive fatal flaw in medieval security. They relied entirely on visual profiling rather than comprehensive credential checks. And more importantly, they had absolutely no immediate dead man switch or rapid accountability system for missing patrols. The defenders literally don't know they're under attack because the absence of 2 guards won't even be noticed until it's way, way too late.
Section 3, bypassing the inner walls. Getting into the outer city was just crossing the perimeter. Moving into the highly controlled inner walls where the nobles reside, that's where the security matrix really tightens up. Foreign faces stand out instantly here, and patrols are strictly regulated. To bypass this, Delta's splinter teams go to work, creating simultaneous micro-distractions. They quietly redirect messengers, they manufacture minor controlled disturbances at secondary gates just to pull guards out of position, and most brilliantly, they secure a Trojan horse to get their main assault element inside.
It's a huge vulnerability. Social hierarchy entirely bypassing physical credential checks. Here's how it goes down. A French-speaking Delta soldier spots a young, foreign noble near an inn. He strikes up a conversation, completely charming this noble with modern tactical concepts, but framed as faraway war stories. In 1177, novel information was basically the ultimate currency. The noble's hooked. So, when the noble heads for the inner gates, a large chunk of the Delta team simply falls in line, acting as his porters and servants. When the gate guards attempt to stop them, the noble, who is in a hurry, just overrules them. Noble privilege overrides basic security protocols. Just like that, they're in.
Section 4, neutralizing the alarm systems. Once inside the inner walls, the traveler disguise is completely dropped, hidden weapons are drawn, and stealth immediately shifts to speed. Let's move to the timeline and watch this response matrix collapse in real time. At 0 seconds, a fortress guard finally spots the advancing assault team and shouts. Delta neutralizes him instantly with suppressed weapons, but the shout was heard. At 15 seconds, a sentry rushes to ring the emergency bell, only to find Delta's alarm disruption team has already sabotaged it. At 30 seconds, the frantic sentry runs for the emergency signal flares, but they have been stolen. At 45 seconds, right as that sentry realizes the true depth of the peril, he is neutralized by a distant Delta sniper. Boom. In under a minute, the fortress's entire response matrix completely collapses.
The core takeaway here is this. Medieval fortresses heavily relied on easily sabotaged physical mechanics like bells and flares to communicate danger. By specifically targeting these centralized failure points, a modern force can effectively deafen and blind an entire castle garrison before the broader army even realizes a battle has begun.
Section 5. Breaching the Inner Sanctum.
With the alarms silenced, Delta is now in a dead sprint against the fortress's internal confusion for the final, violent breach of King Baldwin's inner sanctum. And this brilliantly illustrates the vast technological and tactical overmatch occurring in these tight stone corridors. On one side, you have the medieval defenders, guys in heavy armor with slow reaction times, wielding long spears that are practically useless in narrow hallways. On the other side, modern attackers, utilizing suppressed firearms, flashbangs, rapid crossfire techniques, and continuous coordinated radio chatter.
As Delta pushes toward the throne room, it is an absolute masterclass of close-quarters battle versus phalanx tactics. It is frantic, it's explosive, and it's blindingly fast. But even with this massive technological advantage, navigating tight choke points carries immense risk. At one point, a medieval guard manages to hurl a spear, severely wounding a Delta operator in the leg. His teammate applies rapid medical aid, but it proves that even Tier 1 forces bleed when pushing through stone funnels. Realizing the extreme danger of taking further casualties from blindly flying arrows and spears, the Delta leader switches it up. Before entering the final hall, they deploy flashbangs, rushing into the blinding light and deafening noise to neutralize the disoriented royal guard with precise crossfire.
Section 6. A fatal strategic miscalculation.
The final door is breached. The guards are down. King Baldwin IV is captured alive. From a purely operational standpoint, Delta Force just executed a flawless mission. 50 men, just 50 modern operators stood in the throne room, having completely dismantled the defenses of one of the medieval world's greatest fortresses. They held the king, and by all rights, they held the city.
But as dawn breaks, crushing news arrives from the city walls. Saladin, the legendary sultan, is rapidly marching on Jerusalem, and he's bringing an army of 20,000 men.
And this reveals the ultimate crushing irony of the whole situation. Delta achieved a textbook, perfect tactical victory, but it instantly birthed a strategic disaster. Think about it. By neutralizing Jerusalem's defenses and capturing King Baldwin, they essentially decapitated the city's entire command structure right as an apocalyptic siege was at their doorstep.
The operators look at each other, realizing that capturing the king wasn't actually the end of the war. It was the beginning of a bloodbath they absolutely do not have the numbers to survive. And as the sickly, pale King Baldwin looks up at the modern soldiers holding his wrists, he offers a faint, chillingly calm smile and whispers, "I think you need me." He's right. Despite his physical capture, the Leper King suddenly possesses immense strategic leverage because he is literally the only man capable of rallying the fragmented city defenses against Saladin's 20,000 troops.
Which leaves us with a profound lesson from this temporal stress test. We can analyze the vulnerabilities of outer gates all day, point out the fatal flaws of centralized alarms, and marvel at the superiority of modern close-quarters combat. But ultimately, you have to ask yourself, in warfare, what is the cost of a perfect tactical victory if it guarantees a strategic defeat? Thank you for joining me for this security audit of 1177 Jerusalem. Keep questioning the tactics, keep looking for those vulnerabilities, and I'll see you in the next explainer.